Thank you for coming to my talk today on saving the world one line at a time. Did I spell that right? Almost thought I wrote online at a time. Anyway, so my name's Asim Hussain. You can find me on Twitter as Jawache. I blog about various things on my website, asim.dev. I got the dev, got in there first, right? And I also am a developer advocate at Microsoft. I actually lead advocacy, regional developer advocacy for EMEA. And we have a stand outside today, so if you want to come, you can chat to us later on about a whole bunch of different things. All right? I'm also pretty environmentally conscious. Okay? Have been for a fair chunk of my life. We recycle as a family. I don't drive like a gas-guzzling machine, a pretty lightweight car. I do grocery shopping in a market, so I don't have lots of plastic. I carry insane-sized plastic bottles around with me everywhere. If you see me in an airport, I'm probably looking around for a refillable tap somewhere, right? That's me. These are things I'll do for the environment, okay? It's my son, Micah, 10 months old. I'm not too sure what it is about this picture, but I just get the impression that he loves his dad. And something that we agreed on when he was born is that I would do all the nappy changes. Okay, some advice I was given by Brandon. It was really great advice, actually. So, it's quality time that I spend with my son. I do all the nappy changes, right? And then my wife said, actually, we're going to use cloth nappies. Not disposable nappies, cloth nappies. Any parents in the house? Any cloth nappy users in the house? Well done. Well done. Okay, you know the pain I'm about to talk about, right? So basically you suck it up, right? With a disposable nappy, when they do a shit, you just chuck it away. With a cloth nappy, you have to deal with it. Okay? You've got to wash it. You don't throw a cloth nappy away. And he shits 8 times a day. It's a lot of shit. A lot. Okay? And just for months, I was covered in shit. I'd be on, meetings, and someone would go, "What's that on your face, Asim?" And I'd be like, oh, it's just some shit. Don't worry. That's what I would do for the environment. That's what I would do. Be covered in shit. I was happy to do it. It's fine, right? And then I had an epiphany 4 or 5 months ago. I realized I was willing to deal with shit 8 times a day. I was willing and happy to do that. And yet, I couldn't remember a single time in any Scrum meeting, in any point where we had to make an architectural decision about an application, I couldn't remember a single time where I'd asked, well, actually, what's the greener option? Not once. We would sit there and argue for ages about what's the faster technology, what gives you better SEO, what gives you better performance for the end user, what's the cheaper option, what option has the least risk with least bugs. We'd argue about this for hours on end, but not once had you ever said, well, actually, what's the greener option? Then I thought, well, actually, what does that even mean? In terms of what we do as technologists, and specifically web technologists here, what does that mean? How do you make those decisions, right? And that's kind of the journey that I've been on over the last quite a few months now. To hear, and that's kind of what I'm going to talk about today is, well, why are we talking about climate change now? Why are you hearing about it a lot more? I'll cover that briefly that now. And what does green mean? What should you do? Should you start walking around wearing hemp sandals, or what is it? What do you do? As technologists, what can you do which has the most impact? And that's some of the things I'm going to talk to you about as well. And also, what other things can you do today? Because as technologists, we actually have a huge amount of power and influence in this world, right? There's a lot that we can do, and there's a lot that we can help. So what can you do today in addition to help out with that area? All right, so why now? Why is everybody talking about this stuff right now? One thing about me is if you've been to some of my talks before, I like to make things a little bit interactive, right? there's usually quizzes. Ask the audience. Gonna ask the audience now. All right, so there have been 5 mass extinctions. It's a bit depressing one. There's 5 mass extinctions in the world. And that means that where over half of all life has died, right? 5. So first one was 445 million years ago. How did it happen? Any guesses? You get a cookie. There's no cookies. Yeah, climate change. I think this one was a whole load of eruptions happened over, not like a year, but like 1,000 years or something, and then that caused a lot of carbon dioxide to go into the atmosphere. All right, second one. 375 million years ago, 75% of all life died. Any guesses? Climate change. Exactly. There you go. Next one, the Big Death. 95% of all life died. 95%. Okay? What was it? An asteroid. Now you're thinking, you thought, it's going to be messed, am I going to mess around with you now, aren't I? What's the next one going to be? Is it going to be climate change? Is it? Okay, go on, next one. 200 million years ago, 70%. What is it? Climate change. There you go. But now I'm still screwing with you because there's one more, right? What's the next one? What's the next one? You know, I wouldn't be messing around with you unless there's, oh, what's going on? You might get something wrong. Huh? So the next one, 6 million years ago. That dinosaur looks very familiar, doesn't it? 75% of all life died. What was it? Bit of both. So it was a whole load of climate change. Then an asteroid came along and just took it over the edge, right? That's the prevailing theory. This is a lot of time ago, right? That's the prevailing theories. And right now, people talk about how there's a current one happening at the moment. Okay. So whether you believe it's man-made or not, it kills. It just kills. That's just a fact, right? It's just a fact. What is it? Just to give a summary. So basically, we're talking about something called the greenhouse effect, where essentially there are these greenhouse gases that exist in the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide is the main one. It's like having a blanket on the planet. It just heats it up, so as energy comes in, it traps the energy, and it keeps it inside and doesn't let it escape. We need some in the atmosphere, otherwise the planet would be Fahrenheit. I don't know, guys. I don't know what that is in centigrade, but it's something, right? Like a very low temperature. So we need some in the atmosphere to keep it at the current temperature. But right now, what's happening is we're pumping a whole load up, and it's making things even warmer. Just to give a little bit of so we can talk about things in just explain some terminology. So we talk a lot about carbon dioxide and carbon in the atmosphere. What we're really talking about is something called carbon dioxide equivalent. There's many different types of greenhouse gases. There's carbon dioxide for one of them. There's methane as well. There's lots of others. Methane, for instance, has a much higher greenhouse effect than carbon dioxide. 1 ton of methane is equivalent to 25 tons of carbon dioxide. And that's why we kind of collapse it all into one metric, which is called the carbon dioxide equivalent, right? CO2e. Right. That's what we believe is going on. That's what we believe is causing climate change. Well, 97% of scientists agree that climate change is happening, and then it's man-made. This is through a study of 2,000 peer-reviewed papers. And I read that, and 2 things struck me, which was like, 97%. When have 97% of people agreed on anything? And then I thought, who are those 3%? Who are they? What do they think is happening? So I did some research, and I found this other website that's really interesting called Skeptical Science. And what they had done is they'd taken those 2,000 papers and done some additional data science on them, bucketed them together by expertise in climate science of the authors. Okay? And so what it showed was the more of an expert you were in climate science, i.e. a climate scientist, the more you believed it was happening and that it was man-made, the less of an expert you're at climate science, the less you believe it's happening, it's man-made. The dumber you are, the less you... More intelligent you are, the more you believe. Okay? So climate change is happening, and it's man-made. I'm not going to argue with anybody. There's going to be people in this room. Every time I give this talk, there's always somebody who heckles me and starts arguing with me. There's always a 3%er in the audience. I'm not talking to you. That's not why I'm here. But it's happening. It's man-made. There's another number you might have heard about, 1.5 degrees. So in April 2016, 192 states agreed in the Paris Agreement to try and keep the temperature increase on the planet to 1.5 degrees. Well, less than 2 degrees, ideally 1.5 degrees. There's already been a 1 degree increase in temperature since pre-industrial times. And that was another number that blew me away. I was like, 1.5 degrees. I couldn't tell the difference. That's such a small number. That can't mean anything. Why is that so important, this small number? So I did some other research. There's a really great website called Carbon Brief, which has collected a whole bunch of information together from various sources to look at the effects on the planet from these different temperature increases. And you can see at 1.5 degrees, 1.5 degrees. So this is the proportion of, this is one of the slides, the proportion of species losing 50% of their climatic range. When we get hot or cold, we take clothes off and on, right? Something like that. Well, animals and plants can't do that, right? They just die. So basically, at 1.5 degrees, you can see you're still mostly in single digits. Fucking insects, right? But we need insects, right? There we go. 2 degrees, we're getting into double digits. Yeah? Survivable maybe, but not great. 4.5, we're pretty screwed, right? Pretty screwed. 4 is a really bad place to get to is 4. Right? That's why the small numbers is really, really, really important. And here's the thing. To remain below the 1.5 degree limit that we've kind of set for ourselves, that very kind of reasonable limit that we can comfortably survive in, we need to cut our carbon pollution by 45% by 2030, 11 years, right? And we need to get to 0 by 2050. We're nowhere near. We're not even slightly, little bit close to achieving those goals, right? We're not even at the point where we're reducing the rate of carbon pollution. We're actually increasing year by year. It's increasing by 5% every single year, and has been for quite a while now. We haven't even reached peak pollution to start going down, right? To remain at a 2 degrees C, we need to cut by 20% by 2030, which is still an incredibly challenging thing to achieve. We need to get to 0 by 2075, right? And that's why that's what you're hearing about it. That's why everybody's getting pissed off. Because we're not on track. We're not even remotely on track. We're not even close. Okay? And that's the thing, that it's not like one person has to do one thing. Everybody has to do one thing. Every country has to do one thing. Every country has to do 1,000 things, right? And that's why we get involved, because we can do something. Okay, we can have an impact. And so what does green mean for us as technologists? What does it mean to write a green application? Because many things you can do. You can worry about acidification of the oceans. You can worry about plastic consumption. There's many different things you can worry about, right? For us, the easiest way for us to have an impact here is to look at electricity, okay? So electricity, the creation of electricity is responsible for 30% of the greenhouse gases, the pollution that's going on, right? And that's because 80% of the electricity is created through the burning of fossil fuels, right? So if we make your apps use less electricity, that's a really simple, clear, and impactful way that you can do something positive for the environment. And you are a technologist, so you're not just doing it for yourself. You're building something that is used by thousands, tens of thousands, millions of people. So you actually can have a really big impact in this world. You can have a really big impact in this solution, right? So let's talk about this. Let's talk about it from multiple different angles. And I've been speaking to quite a few people over the last 6 months to kind of figure out where I should be spending my time and effort in, and I'm hopefully going to impart this onto you. There's kind of three parts in what we build. We kind of got the client front end. We've got the networking, which you don't really think about, but the network is actually just loads of computers at the end of the day. And then we've got the server side itself as well, which is again just the computer. So looking at the front end, okay, the client side. Another quiz. Right, what uses, for doing the same task, what uses more electricity? Desktop or laptop? Ooh. Who reckons desktop uses more electricity? Who reckons laptop? It's desktop. Desktop uses more electricity because laptop is powered by a battery, right? Anything that's powered by a battery these days has a lot of effort to improve battery performance. So actually, if your laptops are actually very, very efficient compared to a desktop, they don't really care. They know it's going to be plugged into electricity. It's going to have all the electricity it needs in the world. There's no need to optimize that hardware to use less electricity. So actually, on our phones, or mobile devices, or tablets, our whole kind of client-side front-end world is moving off of battery-powered devices, which are making it very, very efficient. Okay, even things like Chrome and the browsers and Edge and these things, they really focus a lot on battery performance of the sites you build, right? Okay. But then so then you don't have to worry too much about the front end. There are things you can do. Made me also wonder about what language should we be building our applications in, right? Because some languages, to solve the same problem, are going to use more electricity than other languages, right? There's been a study done. I'm going to show you a screenshot, and it's going to show you the language in the first column, and next to it is going to be how energy efficient it is. And the top one's going to be most energy efficient, and the bottom one's going to be least. And you're going to start scanning it as soon as I move the slide forward. 1, 2, 3. There you go. We're kind of like JavaScript 4.45 at the bottom. TypeScript is 21. Which I think, if it's including the transpilation time from TypeScript to JavaScript, I don't think that's particularly fair, right? Because it's the same as JavaScript, essentially, in terms to run. But right at the top is like C and Rust. Probably not going to be building my front-end applications in Rust just yet, but it's quite interesting, right? What do we maybe build the server sides of our applications in? It's pretty efficient technology. And then it kind of makes you think about WebAssembly as well. It makes you think about it in a different light. That WebAssembly wasn't in that report, but actually when you think about it, compiling things to WebAssembly is going to make it much more efficient to run, going to use less electricity. Talking about the network, okay? So this is probably where you have a much, much more impact in the work that you do if you want to reduce the carbon impact to your applications. Another question. Here we go. Wi-Fi or mobile networks? What uses more electricity for the same data? Who reckons Wi-Fi? Who reckons 3G, 4G? G, 4G, yeah. It's about 7 to 10 times more, right? Because it's all using towers and stuff, and it basically does use a lot more electricity to transport the same amount of megabyteage down to your devices. So some things you can consider, there's actually a network diagnostics, I think, API that's available in quite a few browsers now, which will actually tell you the network, whether you're on a 2G, 3G, perhaps consider using that and conditionally serving different types of data, depending on whether you're a 2G, 3G. There's lots of studies. It's very, and this number is changing a lot. So take this with a pinch of salt. But this is a kind of an average number that I found, which looks pretty reasonable across all the studies about the amount of carbon that's generated per megabyte of data transmitted, right? 10 grams of carbon. Is that a lot? Is that a lot? I don't know. What is 10 grams of carbon? What does it look like? I find it very hard to conceptualize what this really means. Then I found this site. It's called Tweet Farts. Okay? What somebody had figured out is through the Twitter infrastructure, if you send a tweet, it creates 0.2 grams of carbon, a single tweet, which is actually exactly the same amount as a human fart. So every tweet is equal to a human fart. Believe it or not. So there's another way of thinking about it. It's actually 50 farts. It's easier to conceptualize, isn't it? 50 farts. That's a lot of farts, isn't it? It's a lot. The average website is 2.4 megabytes still. 2019, still 2.4 megabytes. Or 120 farts. Yeah, it's the average website. There's already a lot of pressure on us to kind of reduce the amount of data we send down the pipe for websites, right? But this is just another reason to think about it, okay? Another reason. Reducing the amount of data you send on a network can have a far greater impact than anything you can particularly do on the front end in terms of optimizing your code, right? So optimize the data that gets sent down. Empty slide. Oh, another one. So REST versus GraphQL. What would use less electricity? You think it's REST? You think it's GraphQL? I don't know. I think it's GraphQL. I think GraphQL is going to use less electricity because at the end of the day, from a client side, you can then say, I only want the subset of the data. I only want specifically what I need. It's going to reduce the amount of data you send down the bandwidth. Now, what am I doing here? This is all I'm doing is making you start thinking about what's the greener option. That's all the goal is here. When you're sitting there in your organizations, and you're going to discuss. You're going to be making architectural decisions. Just start asking yourself, what is the greener option? And just start thinking about it. I don't know what the answer is. We don't always know what the answer is, but just start asking the questions. Just really quickly, moving forward, on the server side, there's lots you can do. You have much more control on the server side because it's something you control and you own. You can control how the electricity gets consumed. Serverless is a really good solution that I particularly like in terms of this. So for those of you who don't know, serverless technology, if you don't use serverless, then you deal with servers, and you have to figure out how many servers you need to deal with your load of the back end, and you have to scale it up and down. And oftentimes, you scale too much, and you get too many servers, that's just wasted electricity, or worst case, you scale down too many, and that's bad performance for the end user. So all cloud providers now have a serverless platform where we basically just give you exactly the amount of compute that you need to solve your problems. Nothing gets wasted, and the rest of that stuff gets used for somebody else, right? That's serverless, and that serverless actually has a benefit in terms of the environment because you don't waste electricity. I read a statistic the other day. It was like 30-something% of all servers in the world are in a comatose state. Comatose, and comatose is a specific definition, which means it hasn't had any activity in 6 months, right? 6 months, and it might not be using electricity, but it still requires electricity to keep it physically in a data center, right? So that's important. So serverless, autoscales, which is what's important, and you only pay for what you use. I have to do a little plug for what we're doing at Microsoft and my team. So we built, specifically my team internally, we built a product called NITRO. It's in alpha. It's basically building backends for your application on serverless. It's based on a Nest.js framework, includes database and file upload support. You can write as a Nest.js application and then just build, and it'll turn it into a serverless application. Then you can kind of upload, you get automatic scaling, and you pay only for what you use. You can come see me at the booth, and we've got a demo of it showing. All right, just moving on really quickly, because the best thing you can do, from the server side is just to use clean energy, right? I said before that most electricity is created from the burning of fossil fuels. If data centers can actually just go, well, actually, we're only going to use electricity that's created from renewables, right? And if you're on a data center which is doing that, you can go wild, right? Because that electricity is not going to be creating any carbon gases. 2 people, and I'm so glad my company is one of them, because that would make my life very weird. 2 companies, so Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, both of them are carbon neutral, both carbon neutral companies. So everything that we do is offset through carbon credits. Even my flights, everything is offset by carbon credits, including all of our data centers. So anything that you use in terms of compute and anything is offset with carbon credits. And also we buy some renewables as well. We're trying to get to 100% renewables. Google Cloud is exactly the same. They actually beat us a bit on the use of renewables, but it's still both 100% carbon neutral. AWS, it's not so clear cut with AWS. They're not a carbon neutral company, but if you run your workloads on these 4 data centers, those are the only 4 data centers, or regions I should say, which are carbon offset. So Dublin, Frankfurt, Oregon, and Canada, any other of their regions, they're not carbon offset, okay? I know I'm a bit late, just a few more slides. So what can you do today? There's a couple of things happening right now. Well, the one thing you can do is join a community called CLIMATEACTION.TECH, okay? A fantastic community. It's basically, at the end of the day, it's a Slack room. If you go to CLIMATEACTION.TECH, you can sign up, and they join you every Monday. And it's a wonderful Slack community. Like, it's not like a standard, and there's no like funny GIFs all the time and weird stuff happening. You can just ask honest questions, and you get lots of people who really, really want to help, and they give you lots of answers. I've been connected with so many people and plugged into so many initiatives because of this, right? If you really want to get involved, join CLIMATEACTION.TECH, and you'll find other people. We've seen people go, oh, we work at the same company together. Oh my God, you're in the same room as me. You know, you discover people that way, right? There's a climate strike happening tomorrow, all over the world, youth-led, Greta Thunberg. So a lot of stuff what's happening right now is youth-led by Greta Thunberg. We're not youth anymore. Most of us aren't youth in this room, right? So there's a big movement happening right now where they're going, you're basically screwing up our planet. We're going to have to live here for the rest of our lives. There's a big climate strike happening tomorrow. In fact, of the 5 locations in the UK or in London, one of them is just outside this conference tomorrow. So for part of tomorrow, I'll probably be standing outside there as well to show my solidarity. There's other ways you can show your solidarity. You can join the digital climate strike. So if you go to digital.globalclimatestrike.net, you can find a script tag which you can put on your website. If you go to my website right now, you'll see this banner at the bottom. Tomorrow, it'll be greened out, just for one day. I'm striking my website. And then the next day, it'll come back again. So if you go to digital.globalclimatestrike, you can add that in. A bunch of companies are now getting involved. It's on about 5,000 websites right now, some big names. I think Dev2, Ben said he was going to join yesterday, so Dev2 is probably going to be hopefully joining by tomorrow. And there's the ways you can show solidarity. I will be having some stickers on the Microsoft stand tomorrow. Put them on your laptop. Just put them wherever. Show your solidarity for the strikers. Stop talking. So talk to anybody. It's fine. Like I host a climate action call every other week, and most important thing is to start talking to the people in your company. You will be surprised who else is actually interested in this. If you're in London, there's a meetup group called Clean Web London. It's actually having a meetup next week. I definitely recommend going to that and connecting with people. Okay, the most important thing is to connect. So to summarize, okay, it's a climate emergency because we're not on track. That's what they call it. We're not on track to meet our targets, right? We really do need to meet those targets. What can you do as technologists? Reduce the energy and electricity that's being used to run your applications, right? That's one thing you can do. Use clean energy if you can in your data center. This is the big one. And in fact, if you join CLIMATEACTION.TECH, They even do cohorts where they help you to have those conversations with management to convince them to move your work over to something a bit more carbon neutral. Again, join CLIMATEACTION.TECH. Striking, you don't have to walk out the front door. Striking can happen in many different ways. You can support your solidarity by wearing a badge. You can just have a conversation. A lot of the things you can do. And I'm going to be striking tomorrow by standing at the stand, at the booth, answering any questions anybody have about climate change and helping. And I'll also have lots of stickers as well. So thank you very much for your talk, for my talk. Thank you very much for my talk. And yeah, chat to me anytime. Cheers, bye.